Do that. For those of you tuning in, you were seeing a prop that we stopped so Mike can go grab the prop.
I mean, this is kind of, I didn't know that something that was just getting started could already break.
It's oil specific, and people have pointed that out. Hey, you know, Apple makes 20 billion or more a year in California, whatever it is.
I feel like, okay, so, well, first off, I want to say, everyone, thank you. I think, Mike, for the next week and a half or so, I think we should probably mention on every show that we will be trying to do this every single day around the same time. That's 9 a.m. Pacific, and that's 11 a.m. Central Time. And you can find out all these discussions previously and all that stuff by going to our YouTube channel and subscribing there. That way you do get alerts when we go live and we do start having these shows, because Mike's a busy person going between Bakersfield back to his hometown in California.
All I do, Bakersfield and home.
Yeah, and I'm busy too. So we're going to try to make this a regular thing. We're going to try to make this a regular daily thing where we go over the energy headlines in several main newspapers. And again, we want this play. And honestly, we're going to provide some energy realities and how they do not meet energy expectations, what that means to the consumer, what that means to the environment, and what that means to the economy. And so what we're trying to do, again, head over to our YouTube channel, subscribe over there so you do get the alerts, because we're going to be doing a LinkedIn one for the next probably a couple of days until people get annoyed by it. They're going to kind of dial it back. So yeah, again, we have a lot of exciting stuff going on. We want to do this more regularly. We love doing this. We love kind of talking energy. We love getting outside of our bubble, and we don't love the news. We love talking about how
distilling the news, distilling the energy.
I was going to go with a little swear word, but yeah, we'll do that. But yeah, so okay, so we're going to get this kicked off, and again, what we're going to, if you enjoy these, share it, talk about it. I mean, that's the whole point. We're trying to spread the word, and if you don't have time to read the newspaper, this is your spot right here. Only if you dig energy. You want to do sports? It's not for me, Mike. I'm good. I'm good on passing on sports. Let's do energy. How about that?
Okay,
right,
sure.
So
that sounds good.
Let's get today's kicked off. It is September 12th. It is a Tuesday, and I got to head out to town. So we're going to do a quick little flyby on what is hitting the news articles today. And let's take this to stage currently. All right. Let's bring this in.
I'll give you one while it's being pulled up. California lawmakers approve emissions disclosure rules. And we mentioned this maybe yesterday morning or the day before. But what legislators are saying in California is that any company making over $1 billion will be required annually to report their direct and indirect emissions. Okay. That's it. Indirect emissions are those that you might hear referred to as scope 3, those that after they're produced at the refinery, at the factory, when it turns to gasoline and it's burned, they're reporting the whole range of the emissions of the products they create. So this is a major piece of legislation, and it is the first of its kind in the country.
Okay, so and real quick, the best, I want to note this too. The best part about headlines is even though you miss a headline, that doesn't mean the conversation doesn't stop. All the headlines do is just build on this continuous conversation that Mike and I do have here. So, we're talking about this. Well, all right, so let me ask you a question. Why, if I'm sitting here in Texas, if I'm sitting here in New Jersey, if I'm sitting wherever, why do I care about this? And the reason why you should be concerned about, or not concerned, you should have this kind of on your radar, is because policy spreads. And usually when it's the forward thinking states such as California, usually kind of that's when it starts trickling around. So let's dive into a little bit more, Mike. So I kind of want to little touch there, and I might be a little bit off this morning. I didn't get a lot of sleep last night.
You had a late night. Well, that's okay. This particular case, and I agree. I think headlines. Sometimes it's a short story. Sometimes I think it'll be important for us to just pull out the main factoids
Right.
out of each article. And so
Yeah,
you
hey,
don't have
we're
to
we're
read
gonna
them.
figure this out as it goes along. So give me
So-
the points of this. Why this is kind of why
Well,
you're
it
seeing-
ties into, so when we talk about on a broader policy perspective and cutting emissions, it
Right.
ties into those targets that our state and our federal government is setting out into the future. So I'll read this paragraph that describes that. Governor Newsom, has advanced California's role as a trendsetter on climate policies by transitioning the state away from gas-powered vehicles and expanding wind and solar power. By 2030, the state has set out to lower its greenhouse gas emissions to 40% below what they were in 1990. So this is a bill that rolls up under the mandates that says, hey, if we don't track it at the corporate level and at the scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions level, then how do we know if we're meeting those goals? So
let me ask you a question, Mike.
California.
Mike, let me ask you a question, okay? And this might be just kind of, me kind of tuning in, pretty tired right now, exhausted, trying to think about this. But I see this goal that's kind of being proposed by California. All right, I see this lofty goal, this pie in the sky goal, this marketing goal of net zero by X date or this date. And what I'm seeing and kind of what I'm hearing since we started these energy facts chats is kind of like, seems like every day or every week there's something that's trying to push, squeeze, force this goal into reality, whether it's subsidies, whether it's taxing, whether it's just shooting these lofty goals and forcing communities and people to kind of comply and kind of squeeze corporations or people into. So it seems like this goal was set and it's like, okay, now we're going to get there and we're going to engineer how we're going to get there, whether it makes economic sense or environmental sense.
Well, the only way to get there is to engineer how you get there through policy, because we know that corporations left to their own devices are going to do what's most profitable. They're not going to add costs because ultimately all of these costs are passed down to the consumer. A business is not going to, even if there's a cost to report these emissions, is not going to do that voluntarily. So,
Okay.
yeah. And so in this instance, you're seeing, hey, the government's saying we need to track this based on the size of the corporation. Another headline, I think tangential, that relates to this is one that I read about California schools and the fact that California schools are largely dependent on natural gas, whether that's keeping the lights on in California schools or cooking the food in California schools. And how do we phase out and electrify all the schools? And so that's another example. And that was in today's LA Times. That's another example of how policies have to force all of these issues. The schools don't have the extra cash in their budget to just arbitrarily say, hey, we're going to prematurely throw out the gas appliances that work perfectly fine and that are vented out of the school building, not captured within the classroom and suffocating and giving the children all these terrible illnesses. That's not happening, but that's referenced in an article like that. And then it's used to suggest policy to electrify everything at the cost of the taxpayer. So two very important things, to your point, that are being mandated in order to control the progress of this transition.
I'm trying to pull this up. Okay. All right.
So I think that covers those two and what's happening in California. Although there was another big, I guess, while we're on the topic of steering the transition, California is also announcing that we are steering the EV subsidies to lower income buyers. So on the transportation side of this discussion, so we've talked about the policy side on reporting. We've talked about the schools needing to electrify. Now on state to steer EV subsidies to lower income buyers. Studies have found that EV buyers in California are disproportionately found in zip codes with affluence, high income earners, white and Asian demographics.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I mean, this is not surprising to me. I mean, it's okay.
It's
So-
not surprising. So what's happening is now under the state's rebate program and subsidy program for electric vehicles, which started in 2010, they're ending it for high income individuals. So now
Oh,
if you
okay.
make over $43,000 for an individual or $90,000 for a family of four, if you make 300% over that, then you will not get the subsidy.
Okay.
You will not get any subsidies. But now they are increasing the subsidy up to $12,000. So they're taking it away for high income, and now they're increasing it for low income. And what this does, this is all funded through low carbon fuel standard and cap and trade tax credits or
Okay.
taxes
Okay.
that's paid at the gasoline pump. So
Okay.
now you have a situation where, based on income level, everybody in the state of California that is buying gasoline is contributing to a $12,000 rebate for low income families to buy electric vehicles.
So let me ask you a question. We talked about this when I was out there last week. We talked about kind of this, and again, my brain's not firing all that stuff. So just
Fire
with
away.
me. Bear with me, Mike, and the two people out there listening. All right, so we talked about this last time. We use your neighborhood as an example. So you're saying, I was like, so if this neighbor is more affluent, okay, does better, makes more, takes home more cash and all that stuff.
Right.
There is now a proposed electricity tax subsidy policy, whatever you want to call it, where the person that makes the most is kind of subsidizing his neighbor's electric rates because they don't make as much. Is that correct? Something like that, right?
Well, this is for EV purchases.
No. Hear me out. Is that?
Yes. Yes.
So right.
Yes.
So you have
income-based fees on your utility.
So you have the income-based fees and the utilities, Mike. Again, this
Right.
is why I love headlines, because headlines
Right.
don't stop and end at the day of. They just
Right.
they just evolve in the story. So you have
Right.
the income-based fees, all right, based on electricity usage, right? And now what we're saying is now there's going to be another income-based fee based on whatever it is to help out the lower income group for the EVs, which, mind you, the way colleges and universities and schools and textbooks teach things is that you don't. It seems like you're forcing people you're forcing a demand, if that makes sense. And let me ask you.
You are. So the article cites more than 1.6 million zero emission vehicles have been sold in California. 1 in 4 cars sold during the second quarter of this year were zero emission. So this program is working. And what they've identified is that they need to make this program work for lower income communities and households. So it's an income-based subsidy only available to low-income households now at this point in the cycle, because the Air Resources Board and the agencies that are overseeing these programs to transition to zero-emission vehicles realize, well, to get the other 3 out of 4 vehicles sold in the state to be EVs, they need to be affordable by 75% of the people in the state, which happen to be lower income.
Yeah.
So California is trying to electrify 25 million cars. That's how many cars are registered in California. To do so, we've mandated that 35% of new 2026 models sold in California must be zero emission, 68% in 2030, and no ICE vehicles by 2035. So these mandates are being met through subsidies that are now only available to low-income households. When it really
what's interesting? I saw something yesterday. I saw this article yesterday. I'd like to keep going if you don't mind. But I saw this article yesterday real quick, and it talked about kind of like, this push to EVs is just going to be a drop in the bucket when it comes to, oil dependency and all this stuff. And I would say coexisting with hydrocarbons, what it does and the benefits, that often is overlooked in our world and our society. But it brought up Norway for as an example, and it said, like 80% are there, or like EVs and all that stuff. And they still have the same amount of consumption when it comes to oil and gas all that stuff as it did, 10, 15 years ago or
Mhm.
20 years ago. It still had the same consumption rate as oil and gas, even when the majority of cars are EVs. And that
Right.
being said, people were known to have an EV and also an ICE, an internal combustion engine
Mhm.
vehicle as well in their garage. So this whole push, this whole mandate to get everyone on EVs and all that stuff. And look, we're not taking away how the EVs are charged. We're not taking when you can charge them. We're not taking into account the mining, the heavy mining that goes into making the batteries or anything like that.
Right.
We're just looking at this. Is this focus? Is this target on stopping people choosing to purchase what they want? Is this really going to be a line and affect the target as much as people want? And that's just kind of something to think about, because you can look at countries right now with a lot of EV adoption and all that stuff, and it still doesn't really move the needle that much when it comes to their oil consumption. So that's my kind of hot take on all stuff. So let's move on to some more articles, Mike, if you don't mind.
Yeah. And I think proponents, just to close that, proponents of this measure would say, well, we're getting pollution out of disadvantaged communities. We're having a clean fleet, driving around those communities. But as we've talked about 2 days ago, one bad wildfire season can wipe all that out.
Yeah.
For 20 years.
Yeah.
So,
one volcano can too. So yeah, we get it.
Yeah. So world at the beginning of end of fossil fuel says Global Energy Agency. So that was in the Financial Times today.
Okay. I think these articles, honestly, I'd like to get into it, but these articles I think have been going on since the 1960s. So right. I love these headlines that just snag people in and grab. Right. Hey, by the way, did you hear that story about what's the Department of Energy? Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham. Is that the DOE?
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Lindsey Graham is a senator.
Not Lindsey Graham. It's the Department of Energy. Yes. I'm sorry. I'm obviously not.
You're jumping to a headline from 4 days ago now, JP.
Well, no, it was funny because someone kind of wrote this whole kind of like they tried to do this like EV cross country and all that stuff, but there weren't enough chargers, and some of the chargers were broken. And then they had to park like this, ICE vehicle to reserve a spot. This lady got mad, called the cops, but there's nothing. There's no law against reserving a charging car. There's a baby. Anyway, it's somebody wrote it was kind of like a scene from Veep, and I could totally picture that happening.
Or Seinfeld,
Curb Your Enthusiasm, exactly. Yeah. So I thought that was good. So anyway, this at the beginning and the end of fossil era, I probably think if you go back and research this decades, you'll probably see the same kind of tone, kind of rhetoric. Again, this doesn't elevate the energy conversations. Again, it probably just shuns one source of reliable energy, unfortunately.
Well, this opinion piece was written by the IEA chief, head policymaker, but he says stronger climate, that to adapt to the energy transition, this could be accelerated through stronger climate policies, despite concerns in Western capitals about voters' tolerance for rapid change. So it's another could. It could happen, but ultimately the voters in the UK and the West are already starting to push back on this because it's expensive.
But Mike, you know what I saw real quick to kind of highlight this? I saw an article the other day that really talked about kind of like how the government should start kind of like increasing taxes, increasing this, increasing that, to kind of force the end of the demand, to force the end of the day. And also at the end, they suggested perhaps if this doesn't work, we should chain ourselves to the representations, front gates until they make a change. So again, it's not calling for logic, pragmatic, or anything like that. It's calling for emotion. It's calling for So anyway, I saw that.
Speaking of emotion, that's a good segue. As I read an article, and this is just a quick one. The U.S. sets record for 1 billion or more weather disasters, and what really irked me on this one is they cite up front that the Maui quote unquote firestorm. So now instead of Hawaiian Electric sparking a fire in high wind conditions when those lines shouldn't be juiced up, they should be off. Now this is going down in history with the quote unquote media and reporters calling this a firestorm caused by a weather disaster, when in fact it's negligence by a utility operator.
Yeah, but unfortunately, Mike, it's the fact that they're sticking the papers are sticking with that narrative and all that stuff. It's one of those things like who writes history, the victors, the winners.
Yeah,
So,
I guess apparently.
yeah. Hey, we're fighting the fight for everyone out there.
Yeah. I mean, we're just trying to share this with people.
Hey, just two bros riffing about energy.
Yeah, AI can help companies go green, but it guzzles in energy. I don't even think it's worth going over much of this. The headline says it all. Hey, AI can help us, but oh man, it's going to make us use a lot more energy. And the one tidbit out of this, the data center industry as a whole is about 3% of global emissions, which is the same as the aviation industry. So
whoa.
that is growing through AI.
Say that again so it sticks with me. Say it again.
So the data center, big data centers
Yeah.
globally account for the same amount of emissions and energy use, I guess not emissions, depending on the sources, energy use as the aviation industry as
That's
a whole
insane.
globally. So
That
data
is
centers
insane.
equal aviation industry. Together, those two are 6%. Independently, they're both 3%. So
No kidding. That's interesting.
And what this is, you're going to need more data centers to power more AI. So as we continue to go this AI route, we're going to guzzle a lot more energy. So it's going to be interesting. Soon you're going to see the big tech companies struggle.
You know what? I kind of wish someone would just kind of walk in the room and say, look, at the end of the day, we need the energy, okay? Whether we're going to be sitting behind the desk on computers or we're going to be getting on airplanes and going and conducting business around the globe. Let's just cut it out. Let's just have realistic, pragmatic energy discussions versus the scare tactic versus which creates, pushes the cost to consumer, which pushes non-logical energy policies. Anyway. So that's kind of
and let me tie this one now that we're on the fly here about AI and data centers needing energy and guzzling energy. And the first article we talked about, which was California tracking emissions from all its major companies. This is why you see companies like Google buying and investing in companies like Fervo, enhanced geothermal systems, fracking into hot, hard, dry rock, because they are buying clean power, geothermal power, for one of their data centers in the desert. So that kind of brings it all together about, hey, just because these policies are being rolled out and these tracking standards and all these reporting standards are being rolled out, there's still an opportunity for oil and gas companies, for energy companies to participate and make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Provide the energy. Do it as clean as possible. Absolutely.
Yes. Amen to that. So, hey, let's take it to the streets real quick. We got Brad Newberg tuning in saying, keep up the effort. Love this daily breakdown. Thanks, Brad. Actually, that was kind of actually why I'm glad, Mike and I connected in person out on the West Coast, because that kind of was a result from this. We realized that, we have something here. I'm learning a lot. I think before we started these Energy Fact Chats podcasts, I love asking these questions. Mike, obviously, love the information and outlooks that you provide. So I'm loving this. And I think one of the big takeaways that this should be something that we try to do on a daily basis. We try to do 5 days a week. So you do get your energy news and you do have these energy discussions. And so again, subscribe to the YouTube channel, because that's where you can find out if you miss it. You can go back to that, get your energy updates. And the best part is these headlines aren't just there. They just evolve. They just add on to these conversations that we continuously have.
And Brad he's a great person, great brother of mine. He's Bakersfield, running a company called Trinity Safety. He's a really good person, and he's on our board of Californians for Energy and Science. Very passionate about bringing affordable, reliable energy to his community. He is a big leader in the community. So
I think there's going to be a lot of people in Brad's boat when they get their electricity bill next couple months.
California.
Not just hey, listen though, Mike. Not just in Cali. I'm talking about
you too in Houston. Yeah, and that's why we're talking about these policies and reporting issues that are going to come to a state near you.
We have Jordan, Chris. I don't know. You remember? This is the cat. One of my buddies who talked about the HOA, the water, and all that stuff. I guess we got another fan. I love that. Jordan, thanks for tuning in, brother. Can we start an industry-wide push to put an end to the term fossil fuels? I second that. I think it's long overdue that this scare tactic term used in the past to drive up oil prices is now being used to highlight depleting supplies and put to bed. I second that, but I'm only going to second that if we get a notion we can stop using the term energy transition as well. All in favor? What?
Well, I wanted to say something about this because I don't think you're going to end the term fossil fuels. There's too much momentum behind it on the competing side, but use it for what it is. Fossil fuels is a broad category: coal, natural gas, oil. I think it's best for the industry to break down. If you're a company, what do? Do you produce natural gas? Do you produce coal? Do you produce oil? And what is the carbon intensity? What is the emissions footprint of your product? I think those are the themes. So if we want to break away from a fossil fuel term used to spread negative vibes, if you will, I think we need to have something to replace it with. And that needs to be, I'm providing this energy source. It's got this efficiency. It's got this level of cleanliness.
Yep.
Break it down for people. You got to have something, an alternative for people. You can't just say no fossil fuels.
Mike,
what is the alternative?
Mike, I agree with that. I love that. I'm going to have to go, but before I go, I want you to give me a
we finished the headlines, right?
Yeah, no, we finished the headlines again.
Okay.
We're going to be doing this daily. We're going to be doing this tomorrow as well. I'll be doing this from when I get to Denver. That's why I got to go. But Mike, real quick,
get on that plane.
I'm trying to, but can you just listen, dude? Can you just stop? Can you please hold on a second, Daryl? I'm trying to get out of here, Daryl. I love
Daryl's asking. There's too much going on now.
Daryl's in the house. I love it. Daryl, how you doing today, brother? So, real quick, give me a quick update on Californians for Energy and Science. When your next speaking engagement is, how people can get involved. Real quick, hurry up.
Yeah, October 4th, I'll be at the Martinez Refinery talking about gasoline prices. So that'll be a very timely update in 3 weeks. Going to start putting the presentation together now. That's October 4th.
You got to film some of this stuff, man.
Yeah. Hopefully they will. And then that evening, we'll be talking at UC Berkeley, the Biofuels Technology Club, another presentation at Berkeley while I'm up there. And I guess a week before that, we'll be in Santa Barbara for our monthly meeting, September 28th. So we'll have many more headline updates to plug that.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up. That's awesome.
No. I think it's important to bring up. So everyone, I want to thank you out there for tuning in. If you enjoyed this, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can catch, if you miss it during the day, you can kind of go back to it and kind of catch it and see how the conversations are evolving. So thanks for tuning in Energy Facts Chats, where Mike Umbro and I try to bridge the gap between energy expectations and energy realities by checking out the news. I think the checking out the news thing, I just ad-lib that. Just go with it. For those of you tuning in, you were seeing a prop that we stopped so Mike can go grab the prop.
I mean, this is kind of, I didn't know that something that was just getting started could already break.
It's oil specific, and people have pointed that out. Hey,